Welcome, welcome, welcome. Everybody's coming into the room. Oh my gosh, who do we have with us? Hi, Grace. Hi, Adam. Hi, Lee. Hi, Pearl. Oh my gosh, gosh. So amazing to see so many people in the house. I would like to welcome you from the bottom of my heart to this episode of Hit Talks Live. Hit Talks, hope, inspiration, and transformation. Now, people will say, like, what does it mean? And it's just like, okay, we really are going to start with a hit. So we're going to start really giving you a hit of hope. We're going to give you a hit of inspiration. We're going to give you a hit of transformation, of amazing messages of wisdom. Amazing messages of wisdom from the heart, from the soul. And there is nothing that is structured in this episode, in this series, in the concept of Hit Talks. And the reason being is that we really do want to deliver from the heart. We really want to be able to deliver you messages of love. We really want to deliver you messages of hope, of inspiration, and of transformational messages. So I welcome every single one of you here on live. I welcome every single one of you watching the replay. My name is Vicky Thomas and I'm your founder and host. And I am just so super excited because every single cell in my body vibrates Hit Talks. Every single cell in my body vibrates in serving you, serving the viewers, serving the world, serving the universe, not just with my connections, but with my heart and my soul and the delivery of really making a difference in people's lives. And so this is why this was collated and this was brought together. So we can actually, as I say, spread wisdom, spread love, and spread the feeling. So without further ado, as the concept of Hit Talks is where we have 8 speakers speaking for 8 minutes from 8 different perspectives from their heart. And why 8? 8 is infinity. 8 is abundance. 8 is balance. 8 is harmony. 4 women, 4 men, polarity, yin and yang. You know, it is just made in heaven. It's a downloaded concept that's made in heaven to actually serve and actually deliver. So we do have a very special guest for you at the end of this episode of Hit Talks as well. So we do hope that you can stay with us because we are super excited about what we've got to share with you at the end. So this has never happened before on Hit Talks Live. So I'm like, hey, can't wait. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our first speaker. Now, our first speaker is all the way in Los Angeles, and he has been speaking at most of the episodes of Hit Talk since we started it, and we can't get rid of him. He absolutely loves it. And he wakes up in the morning because it's early there in Los Angeles, and it's the brightness and the start of his day. Not only is he an extremely good friend of mine and become a soul brother, but he's also full of transformation, he's full of wisdom, and he's full of inspiration. So I would like to offer the floor. I would like to offer the stage. I would like to offer this HIT platform, first of all, to open this episode of Hit Talks Live to Mr. Rick Nahara.
Thank you, Vicky. What a wonderful introduction. Number one, LA is very bright. It's very beautiful and sunny, and underneath LA is a great history that talks about the merging of cultures and transformation. Because when we start these talks, none of us really have an idea what we're saying. What I do during the week is, once I start to think about Hit Talks, and I'm going to wake up early Saturday and I'll do this, I listen for words. And I've done this over the years. You'll hear a word and it keeps repeating. And you'll notice it. It may be odd. You may drive by a billboard and the word appears there. You might hear the word in your head, or you might hear it in a conversation overheard. And my word today was purpose. And I thought about it because after doing this film I was doing up in Tahoe, doing the typical Hollywood sort of thing, during the midst of a COVID epidemic where I was tested every second day for COVID to see whether it was positive or negative. And I'm doing a story about Christmas. And so I thought to myself, well, how ironic. I'm singing Feliz Navidad up in Tahoe with all cameras around me and people with masks, and they've turned off the air conditioning, and I'm supposed to be scooping ice cream that's now melted. and the air conditioning is off. I'm in an enclosed space, and I'm seeing all these people around me. And 4 of the crew members tested positive the day before. And so they were quarantined away. And so all I'm thinking is, there's this virus that I can't see. And Americans like to have their guns because it can defend us against anything. But guess what it can't defend us against? A virus. A virus. And America's #1 in this virus in the world today. You think about it, those are people that don't believe in science and don't think about masks. And I've seen how masks do help. But I thought purpose. Here I am in this place, and I thought to myself, I could get sick. I've told them last tech talks or HIT talks where I'd been in a coma. I had actually suffered a very bad fracture in the head and nearly died. So I understand what it's like to be on a ventilator. I understand what it's like to have that sort of world. So the danger was there. And I thought to myself, purpose. What's my purpose? If indeed I'm to die, my purpose was to make people laugh, to make them happy, to entertain them. You know, the closest thing to an entertainer, I think, is a chef, because you're showing through your work love to the person. And as an entertainer, you're showing your love for their humanity and showing them humanity they may not even see every day. So seeing that, I said, there's my purpose. And if I am to die, I'm fulfilling my purpose. And I thought about it. That word kept coming up, and I thought about it today, and I said, purpose, when we're children, we know our purpose. We wake up in the morning to play. We have a purpose. We wake up in the morning and have some Cheerios or things like that, and we think of our day, and we have a purpose in our life. And as we get older, we start to think that purpose is really our career. Our purpose is this. Our purpose is, and if we get this, we'll be happy. And if we're happy, then we've somehow achieved something. But happiness is a very elusive thing, you know, to go, what is happiness? But I thought about it. If I have purpose in my life, I tend to be happier. I tend to be more joyful. And when you hear these stories today, you'll hear many. It may not be the story for you, but the story for me, and that story may resonate to another person, and they're going to hear that. And that's the word they needed to hear today was purpose. And someone might have another word you need to hear today is purpose. And this, in a strange way, is our world church. Our world church, where we listen for words and we take time to be reflective. As Sanjeev will tell you, meditation is, I believe, I don't want to misquote him, is when God speaks to you. Prayer is when you speak to God. And, you know, that's a beautiful thought. And that's my purpose. My purpose, as I start to look at my life and start to see it, and it starts to come into clarity, is I think fighting racism and making people more than they are, and allowing them to be more of who they are, and being free with who they are, and being a safe environment that they can achieve their greatest purpose is my purpose. My writing will reflect it. My TV shows will reflect it. My films will reflect it. I will reflect my actual inner purpose. And as I reflect that inner purpose and it goes out further and further and further, it'll touch other people that have a similar purpose. And that purpose will grow and grow and grow. And if everyone's purpose here is to make each other's life better, I look at always going back to the Bible. And you wouldn't think of me as a man that's read the Bible, but I did spend time in seminary and I did study. But I remember what was the greatest commandment. Love your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Love. Love is our greatest purpose. And if that purpose can be in our lives, and we can actually embrace that purpose and move forward with that purpose, then we're making life better. The Native Americans say there's 2 wolves inside us, one a good wolf and one a bad wolf, always fighting. And I can look at that in terms of me, myself being Mexican American. There's the conqueror inside me and the conquered inside me as well. We have these uniqueness. I'm American, but at the same time, my bloodline is Mexican, and I'm living on land that once was Mexico. I see a border that's built, that they want to build a bigger wall. And the truth is the walls don't work. The Great Wall of China didn't work. None of those things kind of work. You know, the Great Wall of China, that within a generation, the emperor was Mongolian. Basically, walls never worked. The Berlin Wall didn't work. Hadrian's Wall didn't work. Walls don't work. Bridges work. So if my purpose is to help people achieve that and reach over in a bridge instead of a wall, then that is my feeling and that is my purpose. And that gives me joy. And once I have the joy and the purpose, then my life is better as life is better around me. So my word today has been purpose. And I encourage you to find your own. And in finding that, you'll find joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No, the reason we're having the little bit of the gap, Rick, is so then we can make your video even extra special.
Okay. Well, you introduced, since I didn't know what the order we were, I hadn't set up my alarm clock.
You were very quiet. You were very quiet. Well done. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We always love Rick's talks because you know that they truly are from the heart and purpose. How often have we actually sat there, and you know, this is a question to everybody here in the room. How often have we sat there and just thought, what is my purpose? Or is this really my purpose? Or should I change my purpose? And you know, how old were you? You know, if you ask yourself, how old were you truly found your purpose? You know, I remember, crikey, I don't think I even found my purpose until I was 40 years of age. And I know I only look 21, so thank you very much before you even say it. But it's just like, how many times do we think about our purpose and drive towards our purpose? And you know, thank you so much for sharing that, Rick, because it always does give us things to think about. And great messages. And the one thing I wanted to share with everybody before we go on to our next speaker is HIT Talks is arranged round energetic magical days, and this day is a super powerful day. As every single day that we have HIT Talks is super powerful, and this is super powerful because it's around the energy of flowering. It's around the energy of growth, about seeding, about, you know, we're going to plant our little acorn, and we're going to just spread some hope and some inspiration, some transformation onto our acorn, and then we're going to have a big oak tree. That is our intention today. And what we need when we grow our oak tree is we actually need, you know, we need water for our oak tree, don't we? We need air, we need, you know, we need the breath, we need the, you know, the surroundings around us. And this is what I love about having every single person here as the speaker and every single person here as the guest and watching the replay, because, you know, we're all watering each other. We're all actually putting air and breath and seeds into each other to actually help us all grow, because as Veronica and I say all the time, is together is better. And so this brings me on to our next speaker, who is a fundamental part of, I know, Veronica's life and the life of inspiring women from all over the world. She does it with breath work. She does it with so many talented, so many talents that she has, but she's also has a talent of together is better. She also has a talent of, you know, connecting people and really wanting to inspire people from all over the world. She's from Cyprus. I haven't managed to get to her home yet in Cyprus and actually, you know, spend some time with her, which is, I'm sure, is on the universe cards whenever it's ready. But I would like to thank Viola Edwards for actually being part of HIT Talks team, HIT Talks speakers team. And I'm really blessed for you to be part of this. And I would like to offer you the floor for you to share your 8 minutes of inspiration.
Thank you so much. 8 minutes. Time start. Hello everybody. So yes, my name is Viola, and I want to talk about being today. I was thinking 8 minutes. Okay, let's go. Being. So I was being, or come to this world with a lot of love, expectation. My parents wanted to have a child so much. They have 2 miscarriages before me, and I was so expected. And I think this memory is in me still, because sometimes I go to a place, to a conference, or where there is 1,500 people, and I enter that everybody is expecting me. Yeah, sometimes I get into trouble for that. But I think this memory of being so loved and so expected has been so beautiful. And I had 3 years of my first 3 years of my life so amazing, filled with love and care. And this is my being in this life, how I entered to it. And then after 3 years and 3 months, my dad passed away suddenly from a heart attack, and my mom was very young and pregnant with my sister. And it seems like something put the world ups and down for me. And well, we as a family, we suffer a lot of grief, and it's not only the loss of the father, and then it comes the loss of the country and the immigration. That was my first immigration, new family, new language. And then after 8 years, I have another immigration, this time for another continent and another country and another language, and starting to work at early age. So now I want to talk to you about being lost. So I spent some years of being lost. It was like in one stream, my eagerness of survival and help, and in another stream, I could not kind of hold it together and be this young 13 years old in the life force and being an adult so early age. So I got lost, and I put myself in some addiction and some intensity that took me to sleep 3 hours a day and work and study, but at the same time, that intensity that I couldn't cope. And some year passed into that. And then I want to talk with you about being found, and then being reencountered with the self. So when I was coming to the age where my father died, I could see very clearly how I was driving myself to a death. It's like I had to pay something, and it was something, a call, and kind of I wake up and start struggling like somebody who's droning, and start up, and whatever was to my hand. So I did some years of transactional analysis. I always wanted to be a psychotherapist, so I studied for years. I stopped smoking. Then I met meditation. Then I went to psychoanalysis as a patient. And I was like trying to being found. And finally, after meditation, I met the breathwork. And breathwork came to my life when I was almost 4 years as a patient in psychoanalysis. And then I was found because I could breathe again. I was not living like, I thought like, really, I could do it. Really, I could do it. Really, I could sleep. Really, I could wake up. And really, it seems like I was found. And in those years when I was in my process, of course, I went to so many things in the same intense way as I went to addiction, I went to healing. So there were years of meditation, years of no sleeping, years in the ashram, years of quitting my job, my corporate job, and going into the depth of service, years of not using shoes or not wearing makeup, or 5 years of celibacy. I think you name it, I did it. It was a little bit intense. It was very worrying for people around me, of course. I think you're smiling. I think some of you went into that. If it will be colonic, so colonic to be, it will be fasting, was fasting to be, it will be walking without shoes, it will be walking on the fire, it will be, fasting for 40 days, that will be. They were years of so much intensity and clarity, so much intensity to clear up all this confusion that I felt I was found. And then love came, love for my own life, love for you, love for the environment, and forgiveness for myself and what I did to myself, being in the years of being lost and being in the years of being met again. And slowly, it seems like balance started coming to me just when I was reaching my 40s. And then again, it seems like I felt that my head was over my shoulder. I was not like zigzagging. I really start feeling with all this breath that I was aligned, and some teacher will say vertical. I was like, oh, I was really aligned. And then it was so natural and easy to be engaged with another being, to build a family together, because then it was not the fight and the fear and the death. And then I want to tell you now, my last 2 minutes, how it has been for me to be in it all. The conservative, the traditional, the alternative, the complementary, and how it was for me these years since I was met and encountered. And now at my 61, I regained that girl who was so loved, who was so welcome to the world. And I think now, when I look at this screen here and I see Marie Diamond and I see Veronica and Vicky and my dearest Pearl and my sister and Joanna, I said, this is my life now. Wherever I go into the world, I have beloved being, beloved people that, of course, you say I support but so many people have supported me in my journey. So I'm full of gratitude and thankfulness. And just 3 years ago, I had an accident and I fall down into my head and I had a skull fracture. And I thought, that's it. And in that moment, what I thought, that's it, because of the concussion, I thought how it is to die breathing. So I start breathing consciously in a conscious and connected way. And I understood something fundamental. We can even die being very alive, and how I healed the years that I was living being dead. So I encourage you all to embrace life, to embrace your breath, to embrace life fully, whatever journey you are in now, and keep your consciousness about your breath, and especially about your gratitude of this precise moment that we are living in. Thank you so much, Vivi, for this space. It's so beautiful. It's so filled of energy and joy and transformation. This is me.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So good to have you. So good to have you here. And as you say, it's taken the divine guidance. And you know, when people share their journey of inspiration, they share their journey of divine guidance, then that's where magic can happen. And as we say, very much about the breath, very much about, you know, really supporting ourselves, really supporting our missions, really supporting our vision and supporting the people around us. So, you know, thank you so much for that. I'm just going to mute you, Viola, if that's okay, just so we don't get any background sounds. So, yes, guided by the heart. Today is guided by the heart, and I felt your message from the heart. I feel, you know, even Rick's message is from the heart, and I know everybody's message is coming from the heart. And when we actually, sometimes in our brain, how often do we actually use this elevator? That, you know, we have got an elevator in our brain. Did you know that? We have an elevator in our brain, and that elevator has been put into our brain. So when we get any thoughts that are in our brain, and what we need to do is we put them into our elevator in our brain and we bring them into our heart, and then we make a decision from there. Because when we make a decision from there, it's like, what kind of decision are we making? So the majority of my thoughts go down into the elevator, into my heart, and then I make the decision. And that's how I make the decision about the people I connect with. That's how we make the decision about the people that come on to HIT Talks. And that's the way that I make the decision, the people that I actually have in my space now. Which brings me on to the next speaker, because this next speaker has only been in my life for a very short period of time. And he's all the way from Colorado. And it was very much that, you know, when you surround yourself with the right people then connect you with the right people. And it was, Vicky, you need to meet this gentleman. And I was like, yeah, okay, of course, you know, always say yes. And it reminds me back of your talk, Rick, on the last episode. It was, you know, always say yes. Otherwise you wouldn't be with your wife now if you hadn't have said yes, obviously. And then, you know, we had this conversation, and then it was amazing, because there was the instant connection, and he said to me the same words: I always say yes. And when you feel this instant connection with somebody, and then it was just like, I feel it from the heart, and I would really like you to be part of HIT Talks, because, you know, you speak from the heart, your story is inspirational, and his whole vision, his whole ethos, and, you know, listening to the talk shows that he's on as well, is purely guided from love. That's all he talks about. It's just purely guided from love. And I was like, okay, welcome to the world of HIT Talks. So we're so glad, Tom, for you to actually be part of HIT Talks. So I would like, Tom, when I can find you, which you're just there, I'd like to bring you onto the stage, and I'd like you to give you your 8 minutes. If you'd like to unmute yourself. Thank you so much for being here.
And hello, everybody. I am so excited by this. It's unbelievable. I am the ripe old age of 69 years old, so I'm probably the elder statesman. But I am telling you, when I heard about this, I was literally overwhelmed, because the world needs it so bad. And so I started looking around at everybody's resumes, and I realized I had nothing intellectually in common with anybody on this panel. And my resume is, I guess I can tell you that I have a doctorate in drunk. I've been sober for 31 years. I'm a daily AA guy. And I was literally born again 31 years ago because I was chasing that elusive dollar. I was chasing everything except the right things. I was climbing that ladder. I got to the top. I looked out across the world at the destruction I'd caused, and I realized I wasn't indeed at the top of the ladder, but I was leaned against the wrong wall, and I had to climb all the way back down and start over again. And it has been the most glorious experience of my life. And she hit the nail on the head when she talked about just the way this thing evolves, because what I was going to talk about isn't what I was going to talk about now. Because just through her introduction and listening to Viola and listening to Rick and what he said, and I wore my mask incidentally here, I wore it because out of respect for the world and how scary a time it is, and how we all have to do our part to do everything we can to stop the insanity and bring it inward to love and to kindness and get off the news and get off all the bad. And like I said, I go to an AA meeting every day, and the cross section of people in that room is from every economic strata, everything, every color, race, religion, creed, sexual orientation goes in those rooms for 1 hour a day with no leader, just everybody trying to stay sober. But all they do is exactly what my life is all about. And that is love like crazy, then love more. And this t-shirt, God is so great, because this was in the laundry. And if I would have gone first or second, I wouldn't have been able to wear this shirt, and I would have had to wear that tacky old black shirt. But I got to wear this one, which says, fire your brain, hire your heart. And that's how I live my life. And so it is that every day. I have got to get out of here and into here and have everything generate from here. And you are correct, Rick. You are correct, 1000%, Vicky. I never say no, because that little pie out there, what Tom Chenault knows is so small. The next slice, what Tom Chenault knows he doesn't know is so small. And the rest of the universe that God's got is what absolutely all the beauty comes from. So I literally never say no. And it's my motto, it's my absolute mandate, and love like crazy, then love more. And I just look for what shows up where I can make a difference. And it's always a big surprise. It's always glorious. And it's always better than that little manipulation and that little minuscule living. It's just unbelievable. And I used to have a lot of money. I haven't got a lot of money now, but I've got riches far beyond that called relationships. And I was doing pretty well at that, except for the last 120 days. And all of a sudden here came COVID, and I got locked in at my age into my house. And I had to start doing AA meetings online. I had to start doing business meetings online. And I started realizing that my relationships were with human beings, yet lots of them weren't anywhere near as deep as I wanted them to be. And what this whole thing has done, it's given me the ability to actually look inward and become a better person and become a better human being. And I am telling you, I'm falling in love with my friends, my family, my relationships. My little girl, she came to me and said, Dad, I want to talk to you, man. And I go, what's that? She goes, I think you're a little bit of a sexist, and I think you're a little bit of a racist, and I don't think you know it. And instead of being so busy that I couldn't hear that, like Rick said he wanted his life to look at, I got to look at those microaggressions that Tom Chenault has lived with all his life as a result of society around him. And I got to stop that. And I got to look inward and say, you know what, who I am is that, but that's not who I want to be. I want to give all that up, and I want to embrace everybody that I can at a God level, at a God of their understanding level, where there's no separation, there's just unity. And I'm just trying like crazy to expand my network, to love like crazy, then love more, and get into people's hearts. We're all scared to death. We're petrified, and we're lonely. And I recognize that. And now I've just kind of committed my life into getting that changed around a little bit, where all of a sudden I'm going to be a better person, and I'm going to look at you with empathy. I'm going to try to understand your circumstance. I'm going to write down what my whole goal now is interviewing people all the time. That's all I do. And then I document the conversation really, really well. And then I follow up and I follow up. And what Vicki said at the very beginning of the conversation, she had a profound conversation with J.W. Wilson. All of a sudden, they really liked each other because he called her that unicorn. And at the end of the day, 8 months later, it turned into an absolute beautiful, beautiful relationship that ended up me getting into this club because God's got this. And I couldn't have manipulated what that was in a million years. I couldn't have done it. There is no way I could have been on here doing this myself. But standing back, staying out of my own way, and letting God drive the bus has absolutely been the answer. And Michael Singer says, you can wear yourself out struggling with the experience of a single event or a single thought or emotion. Eventually, we see that the resistance is a tremendous waste of energy. And I was wasting all that energy on everything I couldn't control at all. And today I don't live there. I live in what God's got going on for me. It seems crazy every day what's put in front of me, but I just go do it. And I sleep with my head on the pillow knowing that this guy, 69 years old, is finally relevant. He's finally got a legacy, which is to make other people's lives better, get out of my agenda into theirs, and love like crazy, then love more. So it was my honor at a major level getting to be on here today. But even more beautiful was going back and watching everybody else's interviews before. Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. An absolute true inspiration. I knew that having you part of Hit Talks, and just for the viewers that are actually here on live and watching the replay, what Tom was saying is that, yeah, J.W. Wilson, who's been a guest on this on Hit Talks as well on a previous episode, you need to go back and watch, is that, I met him at a business event, and I don't like labels. So people that know me, I could take the labels off from all my corporate days and everything. It's just like, I call myself a galactic unicorn or a guardian angel. And this was in a business event, and we met each other, and he said, what do you do? And I said, I'm a galactic unicorn. And there was people all around wanting to speak to him or wanting to speak to Robert Kiyosaki. And then they said, we'll come back and we'll speak to you. So it was because I was a galactic unicorn. I could have been a chartered surveyor. I could have been a business owner. I could have been an international speaker. I could have said all these titles, but I didn't. And then, as I say, very much like Tom says, and everybody on here that's here as the guests, here as the viewers, we know that we're here for the right reasons. And you might not have watched the previous episodes because maybe the previous episodes wasn't the right time for you to be part of Hit Talks. This is the time. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens with divine timing. And very much like Tom is that, Veronica and I talk about it all the time. It's like, why isn't this happening? Well, obviously God in the universe, it's not the right time for this to happen. So let's just surrender. Let's just surrender, and let's just allow, and let's just go with the flow and the balance and the yin and yang, and just enjoy the journey, because as Sanjeev Chopra says, it's not rushing to the destination, it's enjoying the journey. So I thoroughly enjoy my journey, and I thoroughly enjoy being with every single one of you that are here. And I'm thoroughly looking forward to our next speaker, Marie Diamond, which I'm sure many of you on the replay, many of you here live as well, have heard all about Marie Diamond in The Secret. And I remember years and years ago watching The Secret, and and just loved it. My journey has been transitioning from the corporate into, let's say, as people used to say to me, the woo-woo world, the spiritual world, for many years. But it was only about 6 months ago I actually caught, no, it must have been 12 months ago, I caught my husband sat down in the front room with Netflix watching The Secret, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm obviously rubbing off on him. So all my woo-woo stuff and everything is secretly rubbing off on him. So but again, another true inspiration. And believing that Marie being part of this episode of Hit Talks, you know, from my heart, I'm so grateful, but knowing that this was the right time for her to be part of this. And, you know, as I say, everything happens for a reason, and she does so much in the world, so much in the world to inspire so many people, to transform so many people, and to give hope to so many people throughout the world. And I'm absolutely blessed for you to be here, Marie. So I would like to please give you the stage and welcome you to this episode of Hit Talks. You're muted, love. Can't hear you.
Okay, hi.
Hey.
So yes, thank you so much, Vicky, and hello, dear friends that are out there. Thank you so much, Viola, to be here, and also so many other new possible friends in the future. So yeah, I was definitely inspired by the previous speakers, and I loved what you were sharing about purpose, right? Because that's actually the only important thing in life, is finding your purpose. I think that's what we're really here for. Now, I was very lucky to find my purpose quite early. And so I was 15 when I had a near-death experience, and I was run over by a truck, and I was declared dead, but you know, they still tried to bring me back because I was so young. And as I was in deep coma, I already was going to the other side, and I saw these beings of light. And there it was declared to me that I had to go back because I was here to enlighten more than 500 million people. So when I came out of coma a little bit later, that sound, that purpose, you know, resonated in my brain, but I had no idea what it meant. The word enlightenment, I come from a Catholic background in Belgium, so nobody talks about that. And even though I was already meditating since I was 7, I already had a spiritual mentor, but you know, that language was quite far from my upbringing. And so what really resonated with me, that I felt like I'm here to make a difference, right? So I started asking every day, show me how to make a difference. Show me how to enlighten more than 500 million people. Now, in today's world, you know, if you would be 15, you would set up a YouTube channel, you would vlog, you would start a podcast. I mean, you would do all kinds of things. But at 15 at that time, and this is more than 40 years ago, I had no idea what that meant. And so I started looking, where could I make a difference just in my own family, in my own community? Because sometimes we want to think very big, but there's so many circles close to you that need some help. And it could be a smile, could be somebody falling on the ground that you help to lift them up, somebody who has fallen off, you know, the wheel of life because they're depressed and you're trying to lift them up. And so for me, it was my question every day when I woke up after doing my meditation. I was always asking, show me how I can make enlightened energy change, making a difference to millions of people. So that question has stayed with me every day, and I still ask that question. And I even had calculated at that time, if I would become 85, how many, if I just would do one person a day, how many people I would have make a difference to, or if I would have become 90 or 95. And I thought, well, I need at least 95 to get to a good, decent number. So that was kind of my calculation at that time. But of course, I had no idea how the universe, God, you know, I would never have thought about being part of The Secret that has reached more than 500 million people in making a difference. Also, your husband on Netflix, right? There's a new generation of young people that now see it on Netflix. So I would not have known how, right? And I started understanding that the how of things, how it's unfolding, it's not something I need to figure out. You know, I need to just figure out every day, what can I do today what can I do to uplift my own vibration, my own energy, and how can I uplift somebody else from the heart with a smile, with a positive action, a positive experience. And as that is unfolding, then the how will actually show up. And the first how it showed up for me was, I thought like, well, if I become a politician, how if I would become a diplomat, then I would reach millions of people. So that's why I became a lawyer first, an international lawyer, to get into that field of politics. That, of course, I found out quite quickly after doing this work for 5 years, that was not the direction for me to go, perhaps for other people, but not for me. And so I started really early at 31 teaching people about meditation, about feng shui, about the law of attraction. And interesting enough, my first clients were actually the politicians I had been advising and had been supporting on my journey. And very quickly, I will start seeing that I did not have to reach the millions of people, but that one person that perhaps I could give some advice to, perhaps the ripple effect of that advice, of that smile, of that positive action would have an impact in their life, in their circle, in their community. And I saw already very early on at 32, when I was already advising the Prime Minister of my country with meditation and teaching him some first steps, what an effect that could have already on 10 million Belgians. So I was like, okay, so I don't have to do everything. I just have to stay on course. I have to stay focused on what I'm here for. And sometimes we do not know our purpose, but we can ask for it. You know, we can ask every day, show me my purpose. You know, ask some clarity about your purpose. And so many times people are lost in that. And sometimes it's because they only find their purpose when they're in their 50s or in their 60s. And I remember my mom that always thought her purpose was teaching. And she did that till she was 60. Sometimes there's a second purpose showing up, right? And you think that's my purpose. And so her purpose at 68 was starting doing Reiki, and became a Reiki master till she was 95 before she died. So, and changing energy. So we don't have always that one big purpose, but we can at least listen to what that purpose should be. And I do believe that every day that's a question to ask. And to ask how it's unfolding, right? And I know, Vicky, you found a new purpose, right? You had perhaps a previous purpose, and now He Talks and bringing people together, inspiring people this way is part of your purpose, or perhaps your purpose. So it's all about opening up your heart to it. And then when you follow your purpose, doing it with all your heart. So it's really here where the seed of your purpose is. It's in your spiritual heart that is here in the center. And when we connect with that, and sometimes we don't know how to, but then we can even just gently put our hands on our heart and say, like, I'm listening, right? Because sometimes people are just listening only here in their mind. And that is, we can listen there, and there are words there for sure, but are these the words of our soul, right? So like you're saying, Vicky, like, you know, bringing things back to my heart. And that is where the true listening is. But in order for true listening, we need silence. We need to really have some silence. And I do believe this time that we had, and that some of you still have because you're in lockdown or confinement, it's because humanity needed that time to listen. Some of us have listened before, and this was not a time to be silent. I've not been silent one moment in this past months, because this is the time I came for. But some of us really need to listen, and they couldn't because the busyness of life was just too intense. And so they are now brought into that place of, okay, what is living in me? And that's why you see so many people changing and transforming, and perhaps reaching out to books, to movies, to Hit Talks, to really getting inspired, because they forgot how to listen to what lives truly in their heart. So that's my biggest wish to all of you. Take your time. Take your time and have that conversation within you, and ask the questions and then listen. And remember, the answers are not always coming into you. Sometimes the answers will come through people. Yeah, could be through a book, could be through a conversation, could be through a dream, could be through watching something on television. It all opens up, but as you are opening up to that space of listening, then you will at least receive the answer you always desired. Thank you and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Marie. Truly, truly, truly inspirational, as we know, and yet listening. Now, how many times have our parents or people around us said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason? Let's listen a little bit more. And going back to, again, Tom and Marie said, they both said about the situation that we're in with COVID, and it's the opportunity. It's how you look at it. I've looked at it massively as an opportunity. The connection and the bonding that I've had with my family has just been out of this world, because I do so much traveling. I'd want to do an event in this country and I'd be over in this country in different places, but it's made us stay together. We got a little puppy, and bringing a little puppy into the house and the bouncing around and the fun, and that wouldn't have happened. So it's looking at the opportunities, and it's also looking, as you say, Marie, what I love about it, and it's for us to really all reflect about when you say about making small differences. Because we all have big visions, and we want to go out, we want to change the world, and we want to transform this country, or transform this circle of women, etc., etc. But it's the small differences as well. It's thinking about, okay, can I go and speak to that homeless person and just give that homeless person some love, some transformation, some inspirational messages, a little bit of hope? Can I talk to him? Is there something small that I can do? One thing that is really true to my heart, and going back to Tom and listening to some of the messages in the chat as well, is that I came from a very abusive alcoholic family. So 10% of my income goes to the National Association of Children of Alcoholics. It's just that small difference. And it's just, I put it on my page just to say that, if everybody just made a small contribution, it could be 1%, it could be 5%. It doesn't have to be money. It could just be assistance. There's just so much giving that we can do out there. And just say, Marie, thank you, because it's the small differences as well that, as I say, is a ripple effect. And that's what we're all here about. That's what we're all here for. So this brings me on to the next speaker, which again is a ripple effect. And Amita Chopra, she has been inspiring people all over the world, teaching people meditation, a doctor of pediatrics. And just also, when I speak to Amita, it's just the soul connection again. And it's knowing that, when she's talking about the Eastern philosophy and the goddesses and the angels, because we talk about goddesses and angels and unicorns all the time, but it's also the love and the wish to actually help people from small differences to larger differences. So I would love to be able to bring Amita to the floor now. I know just to say as well, because they're in Boston, and they've got no electricity because they've been in a huge storm over the last 48 hours. So they're using their 4G so they can still be part of Hit Talks. So Amita, thank you so much for being with us again at Hit Talks, and I give you the stage. Oh, we can't hear you. Do you want to unmute?
How about now?
There you go. Yeah, can hear you now. Oh, we can't hear you, Amita. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So I wanted to actually because of the COVID, our grandkids' summer camp was canceled. And so our daughter and our 2 grandkids are here from New York. And that reminded me of, now they're both teenagers now. And it reminded me of when our younger granddaughter, Mira, was only 8 years old, and she was just entering 3rd grade. And I went to see her off on her first day of school in New York. And then after a week or two, I called her back and I said, Mira, how is your school going? Do you have lots of good friends? And how is your teacher? And so she told me, gave me all the news. And then she said, Nani's maternal grandmother, Nani, she says, I like my teacher very much. She is not only a master's in education, but she's also a master's in mindfulness. So I said, well, that's really nice, but are you able to use what she tells you every day in school? And she says, yes, of course, we do it all the time. And I said, like, tell me, like what? So she says, you know, Nani, when we begin the school, the first thing we do is we all sit around in little groups and we color. We do our coloring. And so that's what we begin our day with. We color mandalas. I said, oh, really nice. These are very elaborate Tibetan pieces that they do. And so I said, but you know, Mira, that's nothing new, because you've been doing that group thing and starting your day with the drawing and coloring you've been doing it every grade, right from kindergarten, preschool. She says, no, but Nani, it's different because we have to do it in silence. I said, this is amazing. So that silence is what calms them down to begin the day. And so here is the children who are always our biggest philosophers. So here's this little philosopher giving me her philosophy of life. So then I said, okay, what else have you learned? So she says, Nani, you know, when we get very upset or when we get very angry with each other, or when we are sad and worried and anxious, then our teacher calls us to one side. She says, okay, now listen, close your eyes. And now you smell the flower. Take a deep breath, smell the flower. And now you open your mouth and blow the candle. So, you know, smell the flower and blow the candle. That's serious breath work, actually. So these are all mindfulness techniques that we can all use. So she says, that's what we do for a few times, like 5 breaths like that. And then we suddenly feel calmer and we feel much better. And then we can go about doing whatever we were doing. I said, okay, this sounds really interesting. So I said, what else? Is there more? She says, yes. Nani, we do the glitter in the bottle. So I said, that's interesting. What do you do? She says, we take glitter, we put it in a tall bottle of water, and then it settles down and we shake it all up. And then we stare at it. We look at it and we watch the glitter go down. And she says, Nani, you know how in your mind sometimes you have worried thoughts and sad thoughts and angry thoughts? Like that, you just watch the glitter go down. And as the glitter goes down, your mind also quiets down. And I said, well, this is amazing too. Wow. And then what else? She says, Nani, you know, I have a singing gong, a singing bowl in my bedroom. My mom gave it to me. And she strikes it and she says, gong. And then you have to keep listening until the last vibration of that sound has gone. And you keep listening and listening. And then you're settling down with your hearing. I said, this is amazing. And she says, Nani, there's one more. You want to know? I said, of course I want to know. And she says, well, we do tightrope walking in the class. So we have these lines on the floor, you know, the dividing lines. And so we just walk there as though it was a tightrope. And we spread our hands out and to balance ourselves so we don't fall. And we step one foot in front of the other. But you have to be very careful that you don't hit other people with your arms if you have your arms out, because you don't want to hurt other people. So you have to be aware of what's all around you. So I said, my goodness, this is quite amazing. So in her own innocent way, this little philosopher of ours, she had given me the wisdom of all the major meditation techniques in Buddhism, all 5 in the palm of my hand. And the first one that is just being in silence. You know how the adults or the monks would go in silent retreat. So we can incorporate that into our lives. The second one, the breathing techniques. Smell the flower, blow the candle. The third one, the glitter, where you watch your thoughts going down slowly, and then your mind clears, just like the water clears. And then the gong, listening to chantings and to hymns, and just being in the company of, you know, people listening to beautiful music. And then lastly, just being aware, being in touch with Mother Earth, touching Mother Earth with your bare feet. If you do that on the ground walking, you are actually exchanging all your negative ions for the positive ones. You're giving up all the negative energy and coming up with all the positive energy. So here she is. You know, the children are always our greatest philosophers. If you have any children around you in your life, take your lessons and cues from them. Watch them play, how they are completely immersed in that one thing they're doing, how they enjoy their play. It's just absolutely amazing learning from the kids. And I'm telling you, there is nothing more wonderful than learning from your grandkids. That's the best. So we are having a grand time. And I hope that you would give these lessons to all the children in your life too. And I'm done with that, Vicky.
Oh, thank you so much. I know that you would really be looking forward to your grandchildren and your daughter coming. So that's you know, amazing story. Thank you.
It is amazing.
Thank you so much. And that's, you know, and that's the thing as well, isn't it? Is how often do we step back and look at the children and, you know, observe the children, the fun that they have, you know, with no thoughts and no worries, you know. Same as what I was saying to you earlier. I was speaking to Sanjeev a couple of days ago. It's like having the puppy in the house, you know, and it's, you know, like children under the age of 7 and with, you know, with animals, they've got no care in the world, have they? They don't think. There's no limited beliefs. There's no self-doubt. They're not worrying, oh my gosh, what would that person think of me? Oh, you know, is that person doing better than me? Oh, they've got this, they've got that. The ego, the comparisonitis, which is my made-up word, comparisonitis. So, you know, children and, you know, young children and animals, they don't have that. They just, you know, they just live in their life with just joy. And when we can live our life with just joy, and when we can just enjoy the process, And I remember a couple of weeks ago doing a Facebook Live, and I was talking to my clients about it, which put me on to record this Facebook Live. And we were talking about caterpillars, and caterpillars being like our self-doubt, you know, not being good enough, you know, who we are to think we're going to be able to create a talk show, who do we think we are that we're going to be able to create this business, you know, all these kind of little self-doubts that we have. And you know, I said, well, just wrap these up as little caterpillars, and we got lots of little caterpillars inside our tummy, because, you know, we have our feelings and our thoughts and our doubts, you know, round our lower chakras. And I said, these little caterpillars, you know, just nurture these little caterpillars and give the caterpillars time and give the caterpillars love. Because the more time that you give these caterpillars love, divine timing, that, and give them love, then within the divine timing, they will turn into butterflies. And we just want butterflies, you know, to turn all our self-doubts, all our unworthiness, and just let them be butterflies and let them be free. And that brings me on to my next speaker, who is a butterfly and is somebody, again, who's new in my life, but I know the deep soul connection and the conversations, because I know Pearl's on the line. She's on every single Hit Talks. But when we talk about synchronicities, you know, I talk about synchronicities in my groups and with my clients all the time, is that, you know, when you are aligned, when you are following your purpose, when you are actually just being aware, then the synchronicities that just happen, you're like, oh my gosh, why? It's just like, oh my God, that's happening again. And then you meet people and the synchronicities are there, and then you can just chat for hours and hours. And this lady is, I'm really, really grateful because, you know, she's all the way from Canada as well. So it's the first time we've had Canada on Hit Talks. You know, and Sanjeev said to me, you need to meet this lady. So, you know, we've been majority over the world, you know, from Singapore to St. Lucia to Norway to Australia, so many different places. And then we brought Canada into the house as well. But I'd like to bring Joanna on because I know that she's got such an amazing story. I don't know what she's going to talk about, and I'm sure, you know, it's going to come from the heart, but from knowing Joanna as well about the amazing story that she has, but what she's doing to make a difference in the world as far as the next generation is concerned. Because, you know, we can make a difference in our world, but it's doing what we can to make the difference in the next generation's world, because it's our children, it's our grandchildren, it's our great grandchildren. So Joanna, thank you so much for being part of Hit Talks, and I'd like to give you the floor.
Thank you, Vicky. It's my pleasure. Oh, so many beautiful things. You mentioned butterflies, which is really my symbol of growth and transformation. So thank you for that. I wanted to share a story of really how I broke out of my cocoon, several stages actually. The first being when my father died at age 11. So I was 11 and he went off to Italy, and we didn't see him after a week. We were told he had a heart attack, and that was that. And so my mother was left to raise 4 children on her own. She didn't speak a word of English, and really she didn't know what to do. She thought she would lose her house, and we were on social assistance. So that was something that we required, and we're very grateful to live in Canada to be able to have that. And so what could I do? I started to really look inward at age 11. You're right about children and really this sense of no limitations. And so when I looked inward, I thought, what could I do to support? And I looked to the Serenity Prayer, and I thought, you know, what is it that I can control? What is it that I can change to support my situation? And so I got a job. And so there I was working at age 11, odd jobs here and there. And I wanted to change the narrative. I wanted to change the story that was being told about, you know, the poor 4 children who were being raised by their mother, and the father had passed away, and that sort of story. So what could I do to break through this? And at that point, I thought education was really the key to breaking through and finding that next stage of purpose, that sense of control, that sense of freedom. Both my mother and father hadn't gone beyond elementary school, so this was really important to me. So in high school, I did really well, and I was top of my class and valedictorian, and all of that went well. And the next stage was really about choosing a university. And what I found there, and I think we heard a lot of people talk about this today, it was really about transforming and changing what might first appear to be a lot of no's and transforming them into yeses. And so what I did was I decided to take a pre-calculus course before entering university, and I discovered that I didn't have the criteria to enter university at that point because I had taken too many courses, if you could believe it, in one particular area. What I did was I transformed that no into a yes really quickly, and then through that process I was able to change the university guidelines. And I thought, how many students have heard no as a result of process, and how could I make a difference going forward? So I became a teacher, and that was an inspiring time. But I did feel limited in a lot of ways. And I thought, how can I support more students and help them through their journey? And that's when I discovered I had a golf ball-like node on my neck. And maybe it was because I wasn't voicing my true purpose. And at that point, I remember seeing a butterfly in my bedroom, and I thought, what is a butterfly doing here? And what's this golf-like node on my neck? soon discovered that I had cancer and was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I remember the oncologist saying, "This is a blessing, Joanna." And I thought, how could cancer be a blessing? But he said, "You know, this is the best cancer to have." And I said, okay, it's the best cancer to have. The diagnosis came on the day that my father passed away, which was the day after my birthday. So I went through the chemotherapy. And at that point, I was asked if I wanted to consider egg banking. I was married and still am to my soulmate. And through that process, I thought, no, let's continue with the treatment. 6 months later into chemo, I became my self-advocate because I didn't feel well, and I continued to push. Through that process, I then discovered that the cancer was still active. So I was referred to Princess Margaret and required an autologous stem cell transplant. So there I was on that journey, and then faced with the decision again, do you want to proceed with treatment, or would you want to consider egg banking? And immediately in my heart, I knew that I would be a mother. And so I said, no, let's proceed, let's move on. My sister was pregnant at that time and highly emotional, as you could imagine. And so I proceeded with the transplant. And the day that I had the transplant, it was quite fitting because my mother was in the room. And my husband, who wasn't there, I later discovered was on the rooftop of the hospital releasing a butterfly. So that was transformational for me. From there, I discovered that through that process, it was really a time for me to reflect and reconnect with my father. And there were so many moments where I could really speak to him in a number of ways at a soul level. Through that process, I was then able to get my mother some financial support that she didn't get when he passed away. So that was empowering, I think, for her and for me. And it was really a transformational journey that was what I consider a rebirth. So today I've got 3 beautiful boys, ages 14, 11, and 8, a loving husband, a successful business that I can use and leverage to be able to support so many young people today that require this hope and transformation that we're all talking about today. And through that process, in speaking to Vicky, she talked about Hit Talks Next Gen, and I thought that was a fabulous next growth opportunity for her, and I'd love to support her and have young people share these powerful stories. So I think the message I want to leave you with today is, as Vicky said, thinking about the caterpillar, thinking about the cocoon, how do we grow through this process, and more importantly, find those gifts that we all have inside of us, open those gifts and fly. So thank you, Vicky.
You are more than welcome. You are more than welcome. And you are a butterfly. You can see the soul of your butterfly. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for being part of Hit Talks. And as I say, you know, there's so many we are going to be doing. And let me just say to everyone that's watching here live and watching the recording as well, is that I know everyone's saying, oh my gosh, there is so much inspiration, and I'd love to hear more about the, you know, about Joanna. I'd love to hear more, you know, about the speakers. Is that Hit Talks also has Hit Conversations, which is honest, inner truth conversations. So this is where I can ask the previous speakers that have been on Hit Talks, we sit there and have a nice conversation, and I can ask them any questions that I wish. And I didn't even tell them what I'm going to ask them, but however, they can also ask me questions if they wish. So so that would be great. We'll be able to go a little bit deeper, Joanna, and talk about your butterfly story a little bit more. And, you know, because it's, you know, say this is a community. This really is a community. And thank you so much for just sharing, you know, sharing your, you know, your story with us, because say, when something happens in our life and we think it's devastating, it's the way that we look at it, isn't it? And, you know, for somebody to say, oh, it's great, it's the best form of cancer that you get, and you know, your mind's, let's say, and seriously, what are you talking about? But, you know, when we look back at it and, you know, we just think, okay, the learning, the growth, and the reflection of, you know, where I am going to go, because the universe knows exactly what it's doing. It's just purely divine timing for us all to actually grow and for all of us to learn. And this takes me on to my next speaker, who is currently in Santa Fe. And again, the universe gave me this gentleman because many of you know that Hit Talks was downloaded. So the whole concept of Hit Talks was in a download while I was in the sauna and a spa, and it was something I didn't really want to do back in February. And it was just like, you know, this has to be done and this has to be done this way. And, you know, I do listen to my guidance and spend a lot of time journaling, meditating, listening to my messages. And as Marie said, looking at signs, because it's not always just coming through here. It could be in numbers, it could be in signs, people. And it was, you know, it's all been kind of downloaded from the 8, from the days that we do it, from the energy. And I love the Mayan calendar. And so this gentleman came into my field, well, the universe put this gentleman into my field, who's a master in the Mayan calendar, and as well as many other things, and the quantum field that I work with as well. But, you know, what I love about life is that there's always different perspectives of everything. So, you know, I was looking at, you know, the calendar and the ancient Mayans in this arena. But then, you know, with everything in life, there's such a bigger, vast teaching, learnings. And, you know, don't just look in that small little bubble. Don't just, you know, this little small areas, as Marie said. You look at the bigger picture, you know, maybe go back a little bit forward, do a little bit more investigation, do a little bit more research, because maybe there's more information out there. So this gentleman came into my field. And so it's just given me the inspiration for me to even go more into the Mayan calendar, go more into my teachings, go more into my knowledge and my education in this ancient tradition. But not so much about this. This gentleman has done so much inspiring as well. So Carl, I'd like to say, you know, I thank you for being part of Hit Talks, and I'd like to give you the floor for you just to share your 8 minutes of inspiration with us from wherever you feel, because you've done so much.
Thank you so much, Vicky. And, you know, I must start by saying that I do not share everyone's view here that we should only go by our hearts, or we should only look for our own individual purposes. I think the mind plays an enormous role, especially if we're looking to have humanity survive and actually also move forward as a collective. Then I don't think we can just do our own things, even if our heart may tell us so. And so that's the reason that I think that I have devoted so much time, probably since it would be 40 years, basically studying the ancient calendar system of the Maya, because that's really probably the best kind of knowledge that we can have as to how a transformation may take place, as to the whole how the whole universe evolves. And without knowing these things, I think it's very hard to find a direction that is meaningful in a bigger perspective than just our own. And so, but one of the things that really attracted me to be part of this, this 8-minute talk is the little conversation we had the other day. And the number 8 then deserves to be looked upon from the perspective of the Maya. But even more so, this fact that here we're gathering inspirational talks from 4 men and 4 women. And because that's really the beginning of civilization. That's how the Egyptians would look upon it. The Egyptians looked upon civilization and the structures of their pyramids and so forth as having emerged from something they call the Ogdoad. Ogdoad comes from the Greeks, and so it means 8 actually. But then these were 4 female gods, and four male gods, goddesses and gods. And they were the ones that created structure. And they were the ones that then 5,000 years ago, at least metaphorically speaking, were the ones that started civilization on our planet. And we find the same kind of a symbolism in many other ancient traditions. And since we are four men and four women here, I think it's important to say something about it. One classical example is the Noah's Ark. To me, that's just a metaphor, but it's a relevant metaphor. So there were four couples surviving from the Noah's Ark, 4 men and 4 women. And in other words, Noah and his sons and their wives. And then, you know, emerging from that is then the structure of the ark, a rectangular structure that was placed so much emphasis on. But you have the same thing also from many Mayan and Aztec cosmograms that they used to describe the world. Really, they had usually not male women, but twin pairs. And so they had these structures of 8 in their symbolism. And then if you go to ancient China, the Bagua symbolism is then 8 different trigrams that started writing, that started the creation. And you have the same symbol from the Mexicans in the Hunabku symbol, which is a duality with 8 different directions. And even so, the so-called Dingir, which was in Mesopotamia, that came out of the heaven, the god of heaven, that was an 8 partitioning. And so the Maya spoke specifically about this. They gave an explicit explanation to how civilization began on our planet. And they said that there was an 8 partitioning that took place in the center of the universe. And as that came down to the earth, structure started to reign and civilization began. And so this is important because now what I'm talking about is that whatever structure we have of civilization, whatever large scale transformation that takes place on our planet, it's not just coming from ourselves as individuals separate from the cosmic center. I believe fully that the Maya were completely correct in saying that this was a structure, a geometric structure that spread all across the universe. And something then that when the human beings 5,100 years ago downloaded that geometric structure, they started to create a reality down here on our earth, and that was consistent with that structure. Before that download, there was no civilization. Now, that's just really in a sense of humanity's path, of the cosmic plan that defines the collective path of humanity. It's just the beginning. It's just it's just a 6th level of a 9-storied pyramid. And since then, there's been other downloads of this kind of restructuring, new geometries being downloaded from the center of the universe, like the one that happened in 1755 when the Industrial Revolution began, but also when much more egalitarian relationships started to rule among people. People basically became much more humanistic. And then came 1999, came the 8th wave, a new download that created the world that we today so well recognize as the digital revolution, but also brought an intensification of increased roles for women in the world that didn't exist previously and certainly didn't exist in the sixth wave. And then the final of these levels, the ninth wave, was activated only in 2011. And that's really something that calls for a transformation of humanity. It's an invitation from the cosmos to learn to download that particular geometry and be part of it and create a world of unity based on that. And this is really my current focus, not only to describe exactly how humanity has evolved through these cosmic influences, but I think it is very important for us to recognize that these transformations of civilizations, they have been given to us, really. We may be part of it and we may act out their aspects of these and in a sense co-creating it, but we did not invent it. We have followed, we have been given these changes in consciousness from an outer source. And, you know, I would probably like to see humanity do something like the Egyptians did when they downloaded this sixth wave, the first civilization, which really was sort of a thankfulness. That when civilization first came, people were thankful about the possibilities that this would give. And now, what has happened since 2011 is that we have been given from the cosmos a possibility of taking the final 9 level, the final step to a new state of consciousness. And that's a state of consciousness that doesn't separate. It's a state of consciousness that doesn't say that one person is better than the other. And it's a state of consciousness, most importantly, that's not just about our individual paths. And in other words, we may develop how much we like on any kind of individual path, whether it's, you know, it could be a religious path or it could be some more, you know, more spiritual sounding thing. I'm on my individual path, so people will say. But I don't think that we will ever get to the top level of the pyramid if we're just looking at ourselves as being products of individual paths. I believe that we have to take that final quantum state from going from a me concern to a we concern. And it's not just sort of, when I say that, I don't really mean just, it's good that people are generous. It's, you know, it's beautiful when people are kind. It's great when people have good relationships, etc., etc. And yet that's not what I'm talking about. I don't think that will be enough in order for us to reach where the cosmic plan wants us to go, which is to the top level, to the 9th level. In other words, to get there, we have to access, like the Egyptians did 5,000 years ago, we'll have to access a new state of consciousness that doesn't really work for us just as individuals. It has to be developed in connection with others, in collaboration with others, and with in unison with others, as a mutual awakening into a new state of consciousness. And you know, I just would like everybody to call on everybody to explore this, to see if this is something you'd like to go towards, if that's something you're you're ready for, etc., etc. But I do think, you know, the future humanity will have to be based on that kind of a unified, shared unity, as you might say, or a unified state of consciousness. And I don't know, was that 8 minutes?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl. Honestly, it's I know I was reading some of the chats there, people were just saying fascinating, and as I say, it's something very, very close to my purpose is this. And let's put our hands up. Who wants to be in the 9th wave? Who's going up into the next generational wave? And you know, when Carl and I were talking, we were talking about the 8, and you know, and this is the thing about the new world. And you know, it was downloaded for Hit Talks 8, the new era, the next generation, the new world. This was even before Carl and I were speaking. And when we were speaking, he was there saying, Vicky, do you realize how big Hit Talks is? Do you realize perhaps what you've created, that, you know, this is, as you say, this has come from higher intelligence. And, you know, and I know it's a different calendar, Carl, but, you know, the calendar of being a yellow warrior today is all about higher intelligence. It's all about the divine guidance and, you know, from the heart, and knowing that the intelligence and the cosmos is what is really driving us forward. So, Carl, thank you so much for that. Can't wait for our honest inner truth conversation. So people will have to stay tuned for our actual our conversation, our interview, where we're going to have to go even deeper on this, where we have more time. So I see that Sanjeev has actually unmuted himself, because Sanjeev is next coming to speak to us about something that is very transformational and very inspirational, I'm sure. So Dr. Sanjeev, I'm going to give you the floor.
Thank you so very much, Vicky. I'm going to share with you 2 stories played out 30 years ago in New Delhi, India, and one that played out about 30 days ago in England. So my parents had a beautiful 3-story home in New Delhi. My father was arguably the most preeminent cardiologist. He took care of the President of India, but took care of poor people with equal dignity. And he had 2 associates, cardiologists. And in the clinic on the ground floor, they saw 100 patients or more each day, from the crack of dawn till 8:30, 8:45 in the evening. They saw the patients, they did EKGs, cardiac echoes, and it generated a pretty handsome fee, which the 3 of them split. So it's 9 o'clock in the evening. My parents are having dinner on the 3rd floor. We had a servant and cook by the name of Shanti, young guy. His young wife and 2 children also lived in the home. They lived on the 4th floor. And the doorbell rings. Shanti goes down, and then my parents hear screams. And he comes up. He's bleeding from the side of his head. There are 3 masked intruders with guns. And my mother looks at them, and she can figure out who's the leader. And she says, listen, don't beat this young man. He has a young family. If you want to kill me and my husband. We have lived a full life. My mother was barely 60 years of age then. She said, we have 2 sons. They're very well settled in America. And if you really have to kill, then kill me and my husband. So he stops and he says, I'm sorry I'm doing this. I have a drug habit that I have to feed. Your father is actually the cardiologist for my father. That's how I've scouted this clinic. Give me all the fees that you've collected from today. So my mother says to him, your needs are greater than ours. I hope, my son, you will mend your ways. I will not only give you the fees, there's some other money in the Almirah. and you can also take my jewelry. She takes off her necklace, her bangles, her earrings, gives him the money. And as he is leaving, he comes back and he says, "You're a beautiful soul. I'm really sorry I'm doing this. Please put these earrings back on because your beautiful face looks very bare and naked without them." So she puts on the earrings, and then he says to her, "One more request. I'm going to touch your feet." So in India, if you touch somebody's feet, you're asking for their blessings. I did that with my uncles and my grandparents and my parents. So he touches her feet, and my mother puts her hand on his forehead and says, "May God be with you. I hope you will mend your ways. I give you all my love and my compassion." The other two intruders have already gone down the steps. He's heading out, and he comes back. He says, "One final thing. If I'm ever caught and in a police lineup, please don't identify me." She says, "I give you my word." So they leave. They loosen her knots. She's able to free my father, the servant. They go to the bedroom, pick up the phone. The wires have been cut. Go downstairs. The phone is working. Call my brother-in-law, who happens to be the commissioner of police. So they come and then they secure the house forever. My dad wrote about this in a book he wrote, Your Life is in Your Hands. And he said, my wife Pushpa, she was this beautiful, is this beautiful soul. And she's so calm and tranquil. But the courage she displayed that day saved my life, her life, Shanti, the servant, his wife, and his two kids. An amazing story of courage. Vikram, the leader, was then caught. He'd already committed murder before he did the robbery in our home. And he's in a police lineup. And they say to my mother, if you want all your jewelry recovered, you have to identify him in a police lineup. And she said, no, it's not important. I gave him my word. I'm not going to identify him. A month later, we hear that he's escaped. But we knew, since our mother had not identified him, that my parents would be safe. Plus, we had all this extra security now. He is then shot dead in an encounter with the police on the border of Nepal. It's an amazing story of courage that saved 6 lives with the way she handled the situation. That brings me to a story that's played out now in England in the last 30 days or so. A 5-year-old boy by the name of Tony Hudgall, at age 41 days, he's admitted to a hospital with multiple fractures, dislocations, and sepsis. He almost dies. The injuries have been sustained, sadly, given to him by his birth parents. Traumatized this beautiful boy. He survives. And now at age 5, he decides to thank the doctors and the nurses that saved his life. He was on a ventilator. He was in sepsis. He wound up with amputations of both his legs. So he's wearing prosthesis, and he decides he's going to do a 5-kilometer walk. He wants to raise 50,000 pounds. He wound up doing 10 kilometers, and he raised £1 million. An amazing, courageous, handsome, beautiful soul. I think hope, inspiration, transformation are anchored in a number of things we've heard about: purpose, Mark Twain said the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Each one of us has a singular purpose in life. They're anchored in love. They're anchored in learning. They're anchored in poetry. They're anchored in music. They're anchored in ancient wisdom. But they're also very much grounded in courage. Sir Winston Churchill once said, "Courage is rightly esteemed the first of human qualities because it is the quality that guarantees all others." Every story we've heard today, and in all the previous sessions, HIT Talks, thanks to Vicky, there's been a foundation of courage. And it's given us a lot of hope. It's transformed the way we think, hopefully the way we act, and it's inspired us. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Amazing, amazing. As normal, as you say, you know I love the word amazing. But I love the quote that you say about Mark Twain, and I've decided now to actually create a new quote, because there's the three most important days of your life. So the day that you were born, the day that you found out why, and the day that you became part of HIT Talks, or the day you started to watch HIT Talks. So now I'm going to make my own quote. I'm actually going to make it into a picture. I'm going to put it on the wall. So it's going to be not Mark Twain anymore. It's going to be Vicky Thomas. No, that's just about me. It's going to be HIT Talks, the three most important days of your life. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the last few people that have just jumped into this session. And I know that we've been going for a little while, but I do urge you to bear with me just for a couple more minutes, because we like to spread love. We also like to spread joy. We like to spread hope, obviously, transformation, obviously, inspiration. Maybe that's the other way around. Hope, inspiration, transformation. But it's all about feelings. And I want to share some feelings with you. So I've invited an amazing lady who has been a previous speaker on HIT Talks. And you wait until we do the interview on the Honest Inner Truth Conversations with this lady as well, because she has so much to share. But she has so much creativeness inside her as well. She's not just a pianist, she's not just a producer, she's not just an entrepreneur, but when you meet her, you feel her soul. And she has agreed to actually come on to HIT Talks for this episode to share with us some amazing, amazing inspirational and transformational music. So Olga, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for actually coming back and playing for us. I'm just so super excited about it. So super excited. So thank you so much. I'm going to give you the floor, my love.
My dearest Vicky, thank you so much for asking me back, and not in the capacity as a speaker today, but as a musician who will share some feelings with you, dear guests. It's a big honor. This is about inspiration. It is about transformation. And hopefully this little piece, which had to be, of course, by a Russian composer, because this is my heritage. It's a piece by Georgy Sviridov. And the title of this piece, which is very important to mention, is The Storm. We all go through different storms, small and big, in our lives. And storms start somewhere, they finish somewhere. So let's see what you can find in this piece for you, and hopefully it will be an inspiration. It's a great pleasure to share these feelings with you. I hope not to disappoint you, and thank you so much, Vicky, to invite me. Please tell me if my position will be okay and if you can hear me. And I would also kindly ask you not to try with the recording, and later recordings, it can be quite problematic, because when you do something on Zoom and then you try to play later, there might be delays and very strange things happening. So I'm warning you. But
it will be perfect. It will be
hopefully
perfect.
You can hear me well now.
I can. It'll be perfect.
Can you see?
You look beautiful as always, my love, and we're so excited.
By Georgi Spirido.
I will clap for everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I do have to say that I'm going to speak for absolutely everybody here in the room and absolutely everybody here on the recording, Olga. We can feel it through our souls. We can actually feel it through every single cell of our body. And this is the power of love. This is the power of music. This is the power of togetherness. This is the power of hope. This is the power of inspiration. This is the power of how we can actually together transform the world into the new era. So thank you, my love, from the bottom of my heart. And yay, it's the end of this episode of Hit Talks. It's like, oh my gosh, it's over again. So I'd like to thank again from the bottom of my heart every single person that's here and contributed their time, their expertise, their love, their wisdom, their knowledge from the speaker's perspective. And again, for you, the viewers here that are on live and watching the replay, obviously Hit Talks isn't the same without you. People say, you know, we like to be in this community. We like to be inside the Zoom room where we can actually feel it, you know, where we can actually see each other and things as well. And honestly, I just don't want it to end. I would just continue and have so many people, but the universe said, Vicky, 8 people, 8 minutes. So I'm listening, but please, please, please stay tuned for the honest inner truth, the Hit Talks conversations, because all of these amazing speakers we're going to be having deeper conversations with as well, where you can ask questions and where I can ask questions, and, you know, just have a little bit of fun, just like, you know, like, get to know a little bit more about their wisdom and their transformational journeys. And the next Hit Talks live, the next Hit Talks is on Saturday, let me just check. Yes, it is Saturday, the 18th of July. I had to go and check then. So all the speaker lineup, you will be blown away again. So we have, I'm not going to give any names yet because you have to register, and I'll be putting the information out very shortly. But we have some influencers that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube, people that are literally changing the world with their messages. You know, we have people that have been, the women that have been the first, I don't want to say just yet, okay, let's just say the first ever fighter pilot first ever with female fighter pilot. Okay, let me just say that for now. And, you know, all the transformational, the inspirational messages that she's got as well. There's a huge, amazing, fantastic lineup as always. So please, please, please join us. It is Saturday, the 18th of July. And let me just double check on Saturday, the 18th of July. Yes, that's correct. I just want to just double check before everyone goes. So again, thank you very much for everyone being part of this. And I can't wait to see you all again at the next episode. And on this amazing, amazing Friday, from the bottom of my heart, from myself, Vicky Thomas, your founder and your host, from the Hit Talks team, and from everybody else that is supporting Hit Talks, from the sidelines, from behind, from in front, from above, from below, from the cosmos, from the upper intelligence, I want to say thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart, and I'll see you all very soon.